Hello again, Tony here, back on my channel once more, this time with an apology. So about 3 weeks ago, I put out a deck profile on Infernity where I claimed the following. Tour Guide, believe it or not, is a one-card access to your Infernity Archfiend. And that's because Tour Guide can summon either your Archfiend Heiress or your Fiendish Rhino. Archfiend Heiress, should he be sent to the graveyard, can add any Infernity monster from the deck to the hand, including your Infernity Archfiend. Now, if you couldn't believe that combo, you were right. As it turns out, that entire combo is illegal. See, Archfiend Heiress here only triggers if she's sent to the graveyard by a card effect. Thus, what that means is that should I link her away or send her as cost for Cherubini's effect, she will not trigger. This means that the only way I can trigger Archfiend Heiress off of that combo is through dumping it off of my Fiendish Rhino. But since Fiendish Rhino is a hard once per turn, I have no way of dumping both the Stygian Street Patrol and the Heiress to have the proper setup needed to be able to special my Archfiend. Thus, that entire Tour Guide combo is illegal. Now, this mistake could have probably been overlooked if it wasn't for the fact that I then proceeded to do an entire 5-minute combo off of just the Tour Guide play alone. And that means for the 1100 views that video got, I have wasted essentially a collective 5500 minutes of life. And that to me is a little unacceptable. See, here on this channel, I pride myself in being as informative and educative with my deck profiles as possible. Whenever I build a deck profile, I try my best to showcase the most that this deck has to offer in its most optimized state. So when I make mistakes like this, I feel like it doesn't necessarily make me look bad per se, but it makes the deck I'm showcasing look bad. And that to me is a problem. I think a lot of the viewers of this channel come to see these deck profiles because they want to see what this deck can do and maybe pick up the deck themselves. So when I make a mess up like this, I feel like I put off viewers from being able to do that. And that to me is a failure on my part, and for that, I apologize. However, here on this channel, I also try my best to fix my mistakes. And what better way to fix my mistake this time than with a new Infernity deck profile updated with all the new support from Phantom Rage. And also a new combo that this time will be fully legal. Anyway, I've droned on a lot more than usual this time. Without a further ado, let's get into the deck profile. Starting off with the Infernities that you know and love, we have the 1 Infernity Archfiend, the 2 Infernity Necromancer, the 2 Infernity Mirage, and the 1 Infernity Patriarch. I don't need to go too deep onto these cards since I did so in the last video, but to give a quick review, Infernity Archfiend here searches when it's special summoned, and that effect is not once per turn. Necromancer can summon back an Infernity from the graveyard, and is also not once per turn. Mirage contributes itself to summon back 2 Infinities from the graveyard, and like the other 2, is also not once per turn. Patriarch, on the other hand, is just a bubble man that special summons itself from the hand while it's the only card in hand. And all these cards will serve the express purpose of continuously reviving back your Archfiend to continuously abuse its search effect to build a big board. Moving on to engines that we kept from the old deck, we still have the Supreme King Darkworm Pendulum package as well as the 3 Odd Eyes Revolution Dragon to search it. See, despite the fact we have new support, the Supreme King Darkworm package is still the easiest way to empty out your hand in one fell special summon, so including it alongside the new support definitely increases the ceiling tenfold compared to what it did before. Another engine whose inclusion may surprise you is the continued inclusion of the Tour Guide package, with the 2 Tour Guide, the 1 Fiendish Rhino, the 1 Archfiend Heiress, and the 2 Stygian Street Patrol. Even without the fact that this engine is no longer a 1-card Archfiend play, the fact that you can either search Archfiend or dump a Stygian Street Patrol is extremely invaluable for the deck regardless. And this is especially doubled by the fact that the new support puts a heavy emphasis on having a higher level 3 count, giving all these monsters an additional secondary use for the deck. And the last monsters we play from the old deck is our 2 danger monsters, just for the fact that they're 2 free special summons that can potentially clear out your hand while still being level 3 for that sweet new support synergy. Now, before I get into the new cards, I do want to talk about 3 problems that Infernity had prior to getting the new support. Problem number 1. The Infernity monsters themselves had a tendency to brick. Despite the fact that you played multiple engines to potentially clear out the brick, the Infernity monsters themselves actually had to sell them away to clear themselves out of the hand. And that becomes a huge problem because there is multiple scenarios where you can open multiple Infinities and have no way of emptying them out of the hand to start your combo. Problem number 2. Infernity has an incredibly linear playstyle. You may find it weird that Infernity, a deck that can build a board out of practically any hand, has a linear playstyle, but when you think about it, every time I special summon Archfiend, you know that the card I search will be my next line of play. This means that a lot of my boards always end up relatively the same way, and there's very little variability in my plays itself, which for a seasoned player who knows what my end board will be, you can break my board 100% of the time. Problem number 3. Infernity was incredibly susceptible to hand traps. Given your linear playstyle that revolved around resolving Archfiend, having a Nibiru or a Ash dropped on you was enough to usually end your turn. This, combined with the fact that you most likely had to set your hand to empty your hand, it meant that you can't play cards like Called by the Grave to answer hand traps dynamically. Ultimately, any and all hand traps were essentially the death of this deck. Now, I want you to keep these 3 problems in mind as I go through the new support. Because while I think the new support doesn't necessarily give the deck new things to do, it definitely fixes some of the problems in these 3 aspects going forward. Starting off with the new monsters, we have 3 Infernity Wildcat and 1 Infernity Conjurer. Wildcat here is a level 3 tuner that can special summon itself from the hand by sending 1 Infernity from the hand to the graveyard. Furthermore, it can bump its level up by 1 or down by 1 by banishing 1 Infernity from the graveyard. Conjurer, on the other hand, can special summon itself from the graveyard while you have no cards in hand, but it gets banished when it leaves the field. And these 2 Infernity monsters solve the first 2 problems that Infernity have. Wildcat here is one of the rare Infernity monsters that can special summon itself from the hand, but it comes at the additional benefit of also clearing out any other Infernity you may have bricked with. Furthermore, its status as a level changing tuner monster leaves it open to rank 3 and rank 4 plays, as well as level 6 and level 8 synchro plays as well for variability. Conjurer, on the other hand, is one of the few Infinities with a graveyard revival effect, which means that I can use this card independent of my normal combo to put an additional body on board to potentially change up my combo for variability as well. Moving on to the spells, we of course have the 1 Infernity Launcher for revival and continued setup, the 3 Void Apocalypse for discard and setup, the 1 Monster Reborn for further revival, as well as the 1-for-1 for Mirage and the Foolish Barrel for further dumping. Now, the new spell we've added to our lineup is the new Infernity Paranoia. Paranoia has 2 distinct effects. By tributing a dark monster, I can special summon 1 Infernity monster from my deck that has the same level but a different name, but its effects are negated. Furthermore, should it be in the graveyard but not on the turn it's sent, I can banish this card from my graveyard to add back any Infernity from my graveyard to my hand. And this card here solves the last 2 problems that Infernity have. By trading out any of my dark monsters, I can get an Infernity monster from my deck of the same level to apply their variability to my combos. In most cases, what that means is I can trade out a level 3 like my Necromancer to go into a Wildcat or a Conjurer for their unique variability in my combos. Furthermore, it's important to note that Paranoia is a spell card, making it the second card in Infernity that I can make immediate use of. Unlike all my Infernity monsters which I search off of Archfiend that I have to find a way to special summon from my hand, Paranoia being a spell means I can actively use it the minute I add it to my hand. Furthermore, that effect in the graveyard to add back an Infernity monster means that even if my combo gets stopped by a hand trap, I do have a way of restarting my combo in the following turn to continue building my board potentially from there. Rounding off the spells, we have our 3 obligatory Forbidden Droplets for clearing out our hand and going second and negating my opponent's entire field. Moving on to the traps, we're still playing the 1 Infernity Bury and the 1 Infernity Break, but we now have 2 new additions in the form of Infernity Suppression. Suppression here allows me to negate any monster effect while I control an Infernity monster, but it's important to note that I can use this card on the turn it was set if I have no cards in hand. And it's this card here that solves the 3rd problem that Infernity have, in which it's susceptible to hand traps. This card here, being able to be activated on my turn I set it, is essentially my Call by the Grave, allowing me to respond to hand traps and negate them while I control an Infernity monster. Being able to open this card or search this card off of Archfiend mid-combo means that my boards are a little more hand trap resilient. And the reason I'm playing 2 instead of the 1, despite the fact that it's once per turn, is because suppose I use the first one to negate a hand trap, I can still search the second one and use it to negate one of my opponent's monster effects on the following turn as disruption. Moving on to the X deck, we continue to play the 1 Dugars a time for that Archfiend revival, the 100 Eyes and Void Ogre Dragon, now more accessible thanks to Wildcat, the Nightmare Phoenix, the Griffin, and the IP Masquerena as our link 2s, the 1 Cherubini for our Tour Guide and level 3 plays, the 2 Saryuja for the special summons from hand, the 1 Appaloosa for the monster effect negation, and the 1 Union Carrier, which despite the fact I'm not playing Buster in this deck, still allows me to attach a Stygian Street Patrol to one of my monsters to get into the graveyard to continue my plays from there. One new addition to the X deck is the 1 Proxy F Magician and the accompanying Trishula, the Ice Dragon. Proxy F Magician allows me to fusion summon using monsters I control, but the added benefit is that if a fusion monster is summoned to a zone that it points to, I can special summon one monster with 1000 attack or less from my hand. And it's convenient in this case that both Necromancer and Mirage have 1000 attack or less, so that it's essentially another way of special summoning them from my hand. Furthermore, the fact that Trishula here requires only 3 monsters is just a nice way to clear out clutter from my field, like Union Carrier, to make space for my more bigger combos. Another new addition to our X deck is the 1 Leviair the Sea Dragon. You may have seen these cards in older Infernity decks, which you use this card to bring back your Stygian Street Patrol to be abused from there. However, thanks to the addition of the Infernity Wildcat, we also have a way of banishing used Mirages from our graveyard to be brought back by our Leviair to once again use its effect to continue our combo. Finishing off the X deck, we have the 1 Infernity Doom Archfiend. Doom Archfiend is a level 6 synchro that we can commonly make using a Necromancer and a Wildcat, and it lets me target one card my opponent controls and negate its effects, but if I have no cards in hand, I could blow up that card as well. Furthermore, any battle damage I deal with this card while I have no cards in hand is doubled, and should I synchro with this card into a Dark Synchro monster, that Dark Synchro allows to make 2 attacks instead of 1. In most cases, this card combos really well with my 100 Eyes Dragon, not only giving it 2 attacks, but I can also banish the Doom Archfiend in my graveyard to pop an additional card that way. More importantly, however, is that Infernity Doom Archfiend is a bigger Infernity monster. Infernity Barrier here requires I maintain an attack position Infernity monster to activate, and while the normal Archfiend is okay, its 1800 attack leaves a lot to be desired. Doom Archfiend on the other hand, with 2200 attack, has a much higher sticking power, meaning that comboing it with a barrier is also a viable option as well. And now, we reach the combo proponent of our deck profile. And just like last time, I'm going to be doing something very similar, where I'm going to show you 2 test hands, and I'm going to build a board with whatever I've been given, just to showcase what the deck can do. And if you guys like what you see and want to see more, comment down below and I'll maybe release another video, maybe on Dueling Book, showcasing further combos if needed be. Anyway, I've already shuffled up the deck, let us begin. So our first test hand will consist of the following. We have 1 Void Apocalypse, 1 Forbidden Droplets, 1 Supreme King Gate 0, 1 Monster Reborn, and 1 Infernity Wildcat. Okay, I'm tempted to think this hand is a brick, but I actually can see a potential play, so let's play this out. First off, what I'm going to start is I'm going to activate the Void Apocalypse, and I'm going to use the Void Apocalypse, discarding the Supreme King Gate 0 to my graveyard, to send an Archfiend Eris. Eris will now trigger and grab me my Infernity Archfiend. From there, I'm going to set the Forbidden Droplets, and I'm going to set the Monster Reborn, and then activate Wildcat's effect in my hand, sending the Archfiend from my hand to the graveyard to special summon him. From there, I think I'll activate the Monster Reborn, summoning back the Archfiend, and now Archfiend, since I have no cards in hand, will produce my first search into my Infernity Patriarch. Since I have no cards in hand except for the Patriarch, I can then special summon the Patriarch, and from there, I'm going to overlay the Patriarch and the Archfiend to summon out my Dugaris the Timeless. I'm going to activate Dugaris the Timeless effect, detaching both materials from it to reborn the Archfiend, triggering the search once more. This time, I'm going to grab an Infernity Necromancer. Now, in this entire combo, I haven't normal summoned, so I'm going to normal summon the Necromancer, and then link away the Archfiend and Dugaris to summon out my IP Masquerena. Now, I have no cards in my hand. Once again, I'm going to activate the Necromancer effect, bring back the Archfiend once more. This time, I'm going to search out my Infernity Launcher. I'm going to activate the Launcher, and from there, I'm going to link away the Wildcat and the Necromancer, both level 3, to summon out my Cherubini. From there, I'm going to activate Cherubini's effect. This time, I'm going to send the second Necromancer to my graveyard. Since I have both Necromancers in my graveyard, I'm first going to, as a precaution, link away all my monsters to produce a Appaloosa that can't be destroyed by card effects. And from there, I'm going to activate the Launcher to bring back both of my Necromancers. Once again, I have no cards in hand, so I'm going to activate one of my Necromancers to summon back the Infernity Archfiend, and using Infernity Archfiend, I'm going to search out my Infernity Paranoia. I'm going to immediately activate the Paranoia, sacking the Necromancer that I've already used, this time to summon out an Infernity Conjurer. I'm not quite sure if I'm going to use the Conjurer actually thinking about it, but it's always nice to have it, and it's a good way to get the Paranoia into the graveyard. From there, I'm going to link the Conjurer and the Archfiend away, and I'm going to summon out a Nightmare Cerberus. This is just my intermediate link too. I'm going to activate the Necromancer once again to summon back the Archfiend once more, producing another search, this time searching for my Infernity Mirage. I'm then going to link the Necromancer, the Archfiend, and the Cerberus away to summon out a Saryuja under 3 materials. This lets me activate Saryuja's effect to special summon the Mirage, and I'm going to use the Mirage with no cards in hand to tribute itself to summon back once again both Infernity Necromancers. From there, I'm going to activate the Necromancer's effect in my graveyard to summon back the Archfiend once more, this time searching for an Infernity Suppression. Now, setting it, I now have both interruptions off of hand traps from my Appaloosa as well as a suppression, so at this point my opponent has no way of hand trapping me. From there, I'm going to link away the Necromancer and the Archfiend, this time summoning out a Union Carrier. I'm going to activate the Necromancer once more to summon back the Archfiend once again, this time searching out my second Mirage. From there, I'm going to activate the Union Carrier's effect, equipping to my Archfiend a Stygian Street Patrol, before I then proceed to link away the Archfiend and the Necromancer to summon out my Proxy F Magician. From there, I'm going to banish the Stygian Street Patrol in my graveyard to summon out the Infernity Mirage from my hand, and then activate Proxy F Magician, fusing all 3 of my monsters away to summon out the Trishula the Ice Dragon. This is just to clear my board to make my end board eventually. From there, I'm going to activate the Infernity Mirage once again, this time summoning back both Necromancers once more. From there, I'm going to activate the effect of my Necromancer, summoning back the Archfiend once again, and with that, I'm going to search my Infernity Barrier, for which I will set. From there, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to activate the effect of my second Necromancer, and this time I'm going to bring back the Wildcat from the early hand. I'm going to now activate Wildcat's effect, banishing the Mirage from my graveyard to make him level 4, from which then I'll synchro it and the Infernity Archfiend to summon out my Void Ogre Dragon. Let's say the zones were switched in this case, just because I think I'm going to link this away eventually. From there, I'm going to overlay both of my Necromancers as level 3s to summon out my Levier. I'm going to activate the Levier's effect, detaching it to summon back my Infernity Mirage. From there, I'm going to link away the Levier and the Trishula to summon out my Nightmare Phoenix. I'm once again going to activate Mirage, now for the 3rd time, to summon out both of my Necromancers once more. From there, I do need to have a way to keep my barrier alive, so I think what I'm first going to do is I'm going to activate the Necromancer to summon back the Wildcat. I'm going to synchro the Wildcat and the Necromancer away for a level 6 synchro, this time summoning out my Infernity Doom Archfiend. Finally, I'm going to activate the last Infernity Necromancer to summon back the Archfiend once more, and once again I'm going to trigger the search effect to search for my Infernity Break, from which I will set. And then this is the board I'll be ending on going into my opponent's turn. Now, despite the fact that we opened somewhat crummy, I'd say we ended up pretty good for ourselves. Let's do the rundown. We have a 3-material Appaloosa that can be destroyed by card effects or battle. We have a Void Ogre Dragon that can negate any spell and trap on the field. We have 1 Omni Negate in Infernity Barrier, 1 Monster Negate in Infernity Suppression, 1 removal in Infernity Break, as well as a multi-negate on Forbidden Droplets, from which I can send the Void Apocalypse, the Infernity Break, and maybe even some of the Dead Infinities to clear my opponent's effects. Furthermore, I have an Infernity Doom Archfiend that on my following turn will let me pop a card I choose, and enough damage off of these monsters alone to do an OTK. Furthermore, should my opponent actually do push back, let's not forget I still have the Paranoia, which I can banish from my graveyard to add back my Infernity Necromancer, as well as an unused Conjurer, meaning that I can actually build a follow-up board should my opponent push back to potentially OTK them from there. Now, our second test hand will consist of the following. We're going to have 1 Void Apocalypse, 1 Foolish Barrow, 1 Odd Eyes Revolution Dragon, 1 Dark Worm, and 1 Tour Guide. Okay, not only do I see a potential Poetic Redemption in the works, I also see a potential play where I might be able to abuse Odd Eyes Revolution Dragon for its secondary purpose. Okay, let's see how this goes. I'm going to start off by firing off the Foolish Barrel as well as the Void Apocalypse, sending the Dark Worm from my hand to the graveyard to dump both a Stygian Street Patrol as well as a Infernity Conjurer from my deck to the graveyard. From there, I'm then going to activate the Odd Eyes Revolution Dragon in a scale, and since I control no monsters, I'm going to special summon back the Dark Worm from my graveyard. I'm then going to normal summon the Tour Guide, activating Tour Guide's effect to summon out a Phoenix Rhino from my deck. I'm then going to link away the Rhino and the Tour Guide away to summon out a Cherubini. Since Rhino was sent to the graveyard, it will trigger, allowing me to send an Archfiend Eris from my deck to the graveyard. And since Archfiend Eris was actually sent to the graveyard by a card effect this time, I can indeed add my Infernity Archfiend. Before I proceed any further, I'm going to activate the effect of my Cherubini, sending a Necromancer from my deck to the graveyard. Then, I'm going to activate the effect of Stygian Street Patrol in my graveyard, banishing it to special summon my Archfiend to the field. Archfiend will then trigger, allowing me to grab my Infernity Launcher. Now, it's important to note here that my 5th summon was indeed the Archfiend, which means at this point my opponent can indeed Nibiru me. But, if they Nibiru me, it would do absolutely nothing. Since I have the Launcher on the field, I can just activate the Launcher, summoning back both the Necromancer and the Archfiend to continue my plays from there. Thus, my board right now is semi-Nibiru proof. Regardless though, I'm going to overlay the level 4 Archfiend and Dark Worm, summoning out the Dugaris, detaching both materials from Dugaris to once again summon back the Archfiend. Archfiend will trigger once again, this time adding me a Necromancer. I'm going to link over the Dugaris, the Archfiend, and the Cherubini away, this time to summon out a Link 4 in my Skulldread, Skulldread being made by 3 materials, when I have its effect live to special summon out my Necromancer. My Necromancer can then be activated to special summon back my Archfiend once more. This time, I'm going to activate Archfiend to search for a Infernity Suppression. And once I set this suppression, my opponent will no longer be able to hand trap me thanks to this card. From there, I'm going to link away the Necromancer and the Archfiend to summon out a Union Carrier. Then I'm going to launch the Launcher away to summon back both of my Necromancers from my graveyard to the field. From there, I'm going to activate the first Necromancer to summon back the Archfiend. Archfiend will trigger once more, this time adding a Infernity Paranoia. I'm going to activate the Infernity Paranoia, tributing the Necromancer I've already used to summon out an Infernity Wildcat from my deck. Then, I'm going to link away the Archfiend and the Saryuja away to summon out a Proxy F Magician in the extra monster zone. I'm then going to activate the Necromancer that I have not used to summon out the Archfiend once more, this time to search for a Infernity Mirage. From there, I'm going to activate my Union Carrier's effect to equip a Stygian Street Patrol to my Archfiend, and then activate Proxy F Magician's effect to fuse the used Necromancer, the Archfiend, and the Union Carrier away, which does send the Stygian Street Patrol to the graveyard to summon my Trishula. Since a fusion monster was summoned to a zone that Proxy F points to, Proxy F can now trigger, allowing me to special summon out my Mirage from my hand. I'm going to activate Mirage, tributing it to summon back by 2 Necromancers once again from my graveyard to the field. Once more, I'm going to trigger my Necromancer, this time summoning back the Archfiend once again, triggering its effect once again to add an Infernity Barrier. From there, I'm going to link the Necromancer and the Archfiend away to summon out an IP Masquerena. I'm then going to activate the effect of my unused Necromancer, summoning back the Archfiend once again, this time using Archfiend's effect to search for a second Mirage. From there, I'm going to link the IP Masquerena, the Archfiend, the Trishul, and the Proxy F Magician away for a 4 material summon of my Appaloosa, which cannot be destroyed by card effects thanks to the IP Masquerena. Then, I'm going to synchro the Wildcat and the Necromancer away to summon out my Infernity Doom Archfiend. Now, I still have that Stygian Street Patrol in my graveyard, from which I will now banish to special summon out the Mirage from my hand. I'm going to tribute the Mirage once again to do the same thing I've always done, summoning back both of my Necromancers, and I'm going to activate one of my Necromancers' effect to summon back the Archfiend. Archfiend will trigger once more, this time searching me for my Infernity Break, from which I will set. Now, from there, I'm actually going to activate the Necromancer I have not used, this time summoning out an Infernity Wildcat. Now this is where things get a little interesting. I'm going to activate Wildcat's effect, banishing one of my Mirages from my graveyard to make it a level 2. I'm then going to use it to synchro summon with it and the Doom Magician to summon out my 100 Eyes Dragon. From there, I'm then going to link away both the Archfiend and the Necromancer to summon out a Nightmare Phoenix. Then I'm going to activate the effect of my 100 Eyes Dragon, banishing the other Mirage from my graveyard to copy its effects, tributing it to summon back both the Necromancer as well as the Doom Archfiend once more. Then I'm going to trigger the Necromancer I just brought back, this time once again summoning out another Archfiend. Archfiend will trigger once more to add a PHRA to the field. From there, I'm going to overlay both of my Necromancers, summon out a Levier, and since I once again have no cards but the PHRA in my hand, I'm going to special summon the PHRA and then link away the PHRA and the Archfiend away to summon out a Cerberus. Then I'm going to detach a material from my Levier, this time to summon back a Stygian Street Patrol, from which I will then link with the Levier and the Cerberus to summon out, I don't know, a Saryuja just for the funsies. From there, I'm going to activate this for the first time in a long duel, activate the effect of Revolution Dragon. While it's in the scale, I can blow it up to summon back one Fusion, Synchro, Exceeds, or Pendulum Dragon monster, which in this case will be my 100 Eyes Dragon. 100 Eyes Dragon will then trigger once more, allowing me to banish the Necromancer from my graveyard to then activate its effect to special summon out my Archfiend. Archfiend triggering for the last time, adding me a second suppression, of which I will set and then pass turn to my opponent. Now, unlike the first board, this board is definitely packing a lot more heat. Not only do we still have the Archfiend, which can still pop monsters, and we still have the 3 disruptions that we usually do, we now have an Appaloosa with an additional gate, an additional 2800 and 3000 body, as well as the Archfiend once more. This is definitely more than enough to kill my opponent, but let's not forget that this board actually has more recursion than last board. I still have the Patrol in my graveyard, I still have the Paranoian in my graveyard, and I still have the Conjurer, leaving me with much more options to continue my plays on the following turn should my opponent push back. And that's going to do it for our Infernity deck profile. Honestly, Infernity continues to be one of the hardest decks for me to profile, especially given the fact that most of the combo videos are like 5 minutes long and are extremely variable, so I have no real control of how I'm going to do things. Regardless though, I really wanted to do this deck first because I wanted to rectify some of the mistakes and misgivings I may have done in my last profile. So hopefully you guys have seen what this deck can do, even without the false tour guide combo, and hopefully one of you guys can pick it up and do well with it. Regardless, my name is Tony Yang, this has been an Infernity deck profile post Phantom Rage. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time.